Year of the Worker in Wisconsin. That's what Governor Tony Evers dubbed 2024 during his State of the State address. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Mark McPherson.
And I'm Maria Lizignoli. We have team coverage live at the Capitol tonight. Our Elizabeth Wattis covering the governor's speech and Cameron Kelly focusing on how Republicans are responding. Let's start tonight with Elizabeth.
Yeah, Maria and Mark, from PFAS to reproductive rights to workforce challenges, the governor spent a little less than an hour in a podium in the chamber behind me in the Assembly, talking about his accomplishments in 2023 while also looking forward to this year.
The governor of the great state of Wisconsin, the Honorable Tony Evers.
Taking the Assembly podium in front of Democrats and Republicans for a sixth time, Governor Tony Evers doesn't waste any time laying out what's what when it comes to Wisconsinites' money.
Wisconsin has never been in a better fiscal position.
And then what to do with the more than $7 billion surplus. Number one,
no matter who I'm talking to or where I go, our largest communities are our smallest towns and villages. Wisconsinites tell me we need more affordable housing, and I agree.
Evers says since he took office, the state has invested in building more than 24,000 housing units, 15,000 of that affordable housing. Adding within the past year, lawmakers worked to invest more than $500 million in workforce housing. Affordable housing to affordable child care.
Wisconsin faces a looming child care crisis. Costs to working families are skyrocketing. We don't have enough child care providers, and the providers we have are struggling to keep the lights on.
Last fall, Evers says he directed $170 million in emergency funding to his child care program called Child Care Counts. He says without continued investment from Republicans, more than 2,100 child care programs could close, leaving 87,000 kids without care. The governor says a lack of child care options is a workforce issue, forcing one parent to stay home instead of going to work.
That's why tonight I'm declaring 2024 the year of the worker in Wisconsin. We are working in earnest to reduce barriers to employment so we can try to make sure every available worker can join our workforce.
Now, the governor says he's invested $150 million in what he calls innovative and creative long-term solutions for the workforce challenges, and also to subsidize employment and skills training. Much more on that I'm expecting to hear from the governor throughout the year. But our team coverage continues now with WMTV's Cameron Kelly. And Cameron, you heard from Republican Speaker Robin Vos directly following the governor's address tonight.
That's right, Elizabeth, and he told me that the Assembly is in a closed session tonight, and they're hoping to discuss the redistricting of maps, and that has been a hot topic for a while now. But to just talk about what he told me tonight, he actually corrected Governor Evers in his address. The governor said Republicans are advancing a bill, an abortion bill, that would not protect in cases of rape or incest. The Assembly Speaker says that is not true. Evers says he will fight for reproductive freedoms, and Vos says Wisconsinites should have a say in this decision.
So I want to speak directly to women in Wisconsin tonight. I will veto any bill that takes away your reproductive freedom or makes reproductive health care any less acceptable than it is today. Period.
We are very committed to making sure that we protect as many lives as we can. Governor Evers admitted it today. We are at 20 weeks, which is way outside the international norm. Most places around the world are close to the first trimester. I think that's the general consensus. That's what we want to ask the people of Wisconsin, and let them be the ones to make the decision, not a bunch of politicians in Madison thinking that they know better.
The speaker says the abortion bill is moving its way through the committee process, including exceptions for cases of rape or incest. Reporting in the Capitol, Cameron Kelly, WMTV 15 News.